Example 1, how fast is the class? Copy the table into your notes, watch the video and collect the data. Use the data to answer the following questions. So in your video that you watched, we found that the class had to pass out 24 papers. And the first time they passed out the 24 papers, it took them 12 seconds. The second time they passed out papers, it took them 11 seconds. And then the third time they passed out their papers, it took them 10 seconds. To write a ratio of the number of papers passed to time, we start with this number of papers passed first. So for trial 1, it would be 24. 2, which we can represent with a colon, or you can write out the word 2, our time in seconds, 12. Up here, 24 to 11, and for our third trial, 24 to 10. When we started passing papers, the ratio of the number of papers to the number of seconds was 24 to 2. And by the end of the activity, the ratio of number of papers to the number of seconds was 24 to 8. This should be 10, sorry. What are these two ratios equivalent? Explain why or why not. So we're looking at, is this ratio equal to this ratio? And that would be no, because the number of papers passed stayed the same, while the time got faster, which made a smaller number. When that first number stays the same, but the second one changes, it makes those have a different value. They're not proportional to each other anymore. Next question. In another class period, students were able to pass 28 papers in 15 seconds, and then 28 papers in 12 seconds, and a third class period passed 18 papers in 10 seconds. How do these compare to our class? All right, so let's start with this first class, which was their first trial, which was 28 to 15. Now, if we compare that to the ratio that we had, let's use this maybe last one, 24 to 10. They passed a few more papers and it took them a few more seconds. So while we can't necessarily compare these in the form that these are in, we'll talk a little later about how we can change those numbers around to be able to compare these. So this one might be close to our first trial. So I'm going to put on here, might be close. Might be close to trial 1. All right, let's look at their second one, the 28 to 12. Well, if we go and look at our ratios, we had a trial that was 12. And we passed out 24 papers. So they passed out more papers in the same amount of time. So this one, trial, was faster. All right, and let's look at this third class here. I'm going to change colors for that other class. It was 18 papers to 10 seconds. So if we go and compare to ours, we passed out, we're looking for 18 to 10. We're looking at this 10 seconds. So in that 10 seconds, we passed out 24, or they only passed out 28. So they were slower at passing out than we were. So this would be slower. All right, so now we're going to copy down another table here. That's still going to use some of the same information we used in our first table, but now we're going to look at writing this as a rate and a unit rate. So I'm going to copy down. We passed out 24 papers. And it took us 12 seconds, 11 seconds, and 10 seconds. So when we talk about a rate, we're talking about, it should be a number with a unit attached. So for our example, we're doing number of papers passed per second. So for our example, number of papers passed per, and that's our key word here, per second. When we're looking at a unit rate, we're looking at just the number. So we don't necessarily have our unit attached. So to find this, we're going to take our number of papers passed and we're going to put it over our time. When we talk about the word per, we show that with like as a fraction or like a division line. So we're going to do 24 per 12. So this line right here means per. All right, so if we're doing 24 to 12, if we divide those out or simplify this down, we get 2 papers per second. All right, so that's what I would write up here in my box. So I'm going to abbreviate so it fits. Some of papers per second because my box is really small. You might make this, oops, sorry, you can't see it. Might make that box a little bit bigger on your paper when you copy it down. All right, let's do trial 2. Was 24 papers passed in 11 seconds. When we simplify this down or divide, we're going to get a decimal, 2.18 papers per second. We go up here to the top, 2.18, so we got a little bit faster. And then our last trial, 24 to 10. Which is 2.4 papers per second. So I'm going to go back up to my table and enter that in. 2.4 papers per second. So to go write our unit rate, we're looking at the number or the amount, the value. So 2, 2.18, and 2.4. When we're looking at a unit rate, we must remember or make a note on here. Go down to my paper. Right here, this is important. Our unit rate is always the number, I'm going to say of something because we don't always know what it is. The number of something per one unit or per one of something else. We could write our rate as 24 papers to 12 seconds, but we can't write the unit rate as 24 papers to 12 seconds. We have to simplify that down to how many papers it would be per 1 second.